This room is cold. It's not an air conditioning cold. It's a damp concrete cold that seeps out of the walls. This is the basement of my own home. No, my former home. I can hear my daughter-in-law, Susan, pacing on the hardwood floors above me. The sharp click-clack of her heels on the oak sounds like a hammer banging on my chest. "Old woman!" Her shrill voice echoes down the stairs. "Dinner is ready. Come and get it." I pull the thin, worn blanket tighter around my shoulders. Come and get it. 3 months ago, I was the one sitting at the oak dining table upstairs. Now I have to come and get the leftovers, like a dog waiting for scraps. "And don't turn that space heater on," Susan shrieks again. "The electric bill was through the roof last month. Don't you know how to save money?" I flinch and turn off the small heater I'd secretly bought. My name is Carol. I am 68 years old. I was a respected history teacher. I was the owner of this beautiful 3-bedroom house, and I signed it away. I signed everything away for a promise. Let me tell you how it all started. My life, up until a year ago, was perfect. My husband Frank passed away 5 years ago from a heart attack. We'd had a happy 40-year marriage. He was a hard-working plumber, and I was a teacher. We weren't rich, but we had the one thing many Americans dream of: a fully paid-off house in a quiet Ohio suburb. That house was my pride and joy. It was where Frank and I raised Mark, our only son. Every square inch of that home was soaked in our sweat, our love, and our memories. After Frank passed, that house became my fortress, my safe place. I lived on my teacher's pension and my Social Security. I was comfortable. I gardened. I joined a book club, and I occasionally drove to visit my grandchildren. Mark, my son, has been married to Susan for 8 years. They have 2 children. Mark is a good son. Or, well, I used to think so. He's kind, but perhaps a little weak-willed. Susan is the opposite. She's sharp, ambitious, and always talking about money, about getting ahead. They lived about 40 minutes away, in a cramped rental apartment. Every time I visited, Susan would sigh. "Mom, I'm just so tired," she'd say, while Mark shuffled bills on the table. "The rent keeps going up, and with Mark's student loans and the credit card debt, we're working so hard, but we can't get ahead." Mark would nod. "I just wish we'd had a head start, like you and Dad did." My heart ached for them. I'd given them money many times, but it never seemed to be enough. "Your house is just so big, Mom," Susan said one Sunday evening, almost to herself. "Just you, in 3 bedrooms, while the 4 of us are crammed into 2. I felt a slight pinch of discomfort, but I brushed it off. I loved my independence. But Susan didn't give up. She started sending me articles about the rising costs of healthcare, articles about how seniors were losing their entire life savings to nursing homes. And then, one Sunday, they showed up unannounced. Their faces were grim. "Mom," Mark began, his voice full of worry, "we're here because we're worried about your future." Susan took my hand. Her grip was cold. "Mom, Carol, I was just talking to a friend of mine who's an attorney. She told me about something called Medicaid." Of course, I knew about Medicaid. It's the government health insurance for low-income people or for long-term care. "Here's the problem, Mom," Susan said, her voice serious. "If you, God forbid, have a stroke or break your hip, you'll need a nursing home, and the costs are astronomical, $10,000 a month. You'd have to go on Medicaid." I nodded. "So, I'd go on Medicaid." "It's not that simple, Mom," Mark jumped in. "Medicaid has something called the 5-year look-back rule. Before they pay a single penny, they will check all your assets for the last 5 years. And this house," Susan gestured around my living room, "this $400,000 paid-off house, they will count it as an asset. They will force you to sell it and pay for your own care until the money runs out. They will take everything. You'll be left with nothing, Mom. Do you understand?" My heart sank into my stomach. Lose my house? Lose my fortress? Lose everything Frank and I had worked our whole lives for? I had heard other seniors whispering about this. The fear was real. So what do I do? I asked, my voice trembling. Mark and Susan looked at each other. This was the moment they had been waiting for. We have a plan, Susan said quickly. An asset protection plan. It's very common. You're going to sign the house over to Mark. Legally, you won't own it anymore. That way, if you need Medicaid in the next 5 years, they can't touch the house. You'll qualify for benefits immediately. I frowned. Sign it over to Mark? Then where will I live? Oh, Mom, Susan laughed, throwing her arms around me. We'll move in with you. Right away. The 4 of us will move in here. I'll take care of you every single day. You will never have to worry about a nursing home. We'll be one big happy family. The house stays in the family. It's the only way to keep it, don't you see? Mark nodded enthusiastically. She's right, Mom. We take care of you, and in return, we get a place to live. You protect your assets. It's a win-win. It sounded so logical. I, a history teacher, what did I know about complicated Medicaid laws? All I saw was a future where my son and grandchildren lived with me, the house filled with laughter, and I was safe from the terrifying prospect of losing everything. I trusted my son. A week later, Mark drove me to a notary public's office that Susan had found. It's just a formality, Mom, Mark said, handing me a pen. The notary, a tired-looking man, pointed to a line. Ma'am, do you understand you are signing a quitclaim deed? I hesitated. It just means I'm giving the house to my son to protect it, right? Mark patted my shoulder. That's right, Mom. Just like we talked about. Susan, who was also there, smiled. It's just on paper, Mom. You're still the boss. The notary shrugged and stamped the document. I signed. I didn't read the fine print. I signed away my $400,000 home, my entire legacy, for $0. They moved in that weekend. The first week was wonderful. The children's laughter echoed in the halls. Susan cooked huge meals. Mark fixed the broken fence. This is right, I thought. This is family. But the honeymoon ended quickly. It started small. Mom, your master bedroom has that beautiful balcony, Susan said. We really need the space for a home office. Would you mind moving to the guest room on the first floor? I agreed. Of course, dear. A month later, Mom, that room on the first floor is so noisy, Susan complained. The kids' friends are always over, and you're getting older, you need your peace and quiet. You know, what about the basement room? It has its own private bathroom. It's perfectly quiet. I hesitated this time. The basement? Come on, Mom, Mark said. We'll set up your bed, your dresser. It'll be cozy. And just like that, I was moved to the basement. The next thing to go was my money. Mom, Susan said at dinner, back when I was still allowed at the table, since we're paying for all the utilities, the groceries, everything for the whole house, that Social Security check you get every month, why don't you just sign it over to our joint account? It'll make managing the household finances so much easier. You're retired. You don't need to worry about bills. I, still trusting, agreed. I signed the paperwork that allowed my Social Security to be direct deposited into their account. It was my final mistake. The moment they had control of my house and my money, the masks came off. I was no longer included in their meals. Susan started cooking separately. You eat bland old people food, she said. I'll just make yours on the side. My meals became sandwiches, canned soup, or their leftovers from the night before. I was no longer allowed to drive. You're getting older, Mom. Your driving is dangerous, Susan said. Give me the keys. I had no money, I had no car, and I lived in the basement. I had become a prisoner in my own home, an unpaid live-in maid. I realized the Medicaid scheme was just an elaborate lie to steal everything I had. But that still wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I was about to overhear last night. And last night, insomnia hit me around 2 a.m. This happened more often since I moved into the basement. My bones ached from the cold. I had turned on my little electric heater, but its quiet hum made me anxious that Susan would hear. I turned it off and decided to go upstairs. I needed another blanket. The linen closet was in the hallway on the second floor, right outside my old bedroom. I crept up the stairs, trying not to make a sound. The house was dead silent. I passed through the kitchen, through the living room. The only light was the blue glow of the TV in the family room, where my son, Mark, and my daughter-in-law, Susan, were sitting. They thought I was fast asleep. I paused at the bottom of the main staircase. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but then I heard my name. "I am so sick of her, Mark," Susan's voice hissed, even though she was whispering. I swear, her smell, that medicated rub she uses, it's all over the house. I can't take another day of it. My heart stopped. I heard Mark sigh. "Susan, keep your voice down. She's my mother." "Your mother?" Susan scoffed, a cold, ugly sound. "Your mother is a burden. Your mother is a money pit. Do you have any idea that her Social Security check doesn't even cover the increase in our property tax this quarter? We are losing money by keeping her here. We made a promise," Mark said weakly. "We promised we'd take care of her." "We promised? No, you promised. I promised to protect the asset. And I did. This house is ours, Mark. My name and your name are on the deed." I checked again. That quitclaim deed is ironclad. She has no rights. A terrible silence. I held my breath. And then Susan said the words that broke the final piece of my heart. "I've already been looking up some places. Those state-run facilities on the west side, they're affordable. We can use her Social Security to pay the fee." I heard Mark shift, alarmed. You mean a nursing home? Susan, we can't. My God, we can't do that. Mom would what? Susan snapped. She'll complain for a bit, then she'll get used to it. We'll tell her it's a premium senior community. We drive her there, we sign the papers, and we leave. It's done. We get our house back, we get our lives back. Don't you want that? Or do you want to keep living with a smelly, senile old woman for the next 20 years? I stood there in the dark, shaking. I waited for my son, my little Mark, the boy I sang to sleep, the boy I stayed up with when he was sick. I waited for him to say never. I waited for him to defend me. But all I heard was a long, drawn-out silence. And then Mark's voice, tired and defeated. "Fine. Let's just get through Christmas. We can look at it after the holidays." I didn't hear anything else. The blood was rushing in my ears, roaring so loud it drowned out all sound. I felt myself backing away. My hand flew to my mouth to stop the sob from escaping. I didn't go back for the blanket. I didn't need it. I went back to my basement room, shut the door, but I didn't feel cold anymore. I felt rage, a cold, deep rage I never knew I possessed. The tears started to fall, but they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of realization. They had lied. They had planned this all along. The Medicaid scare, the asset protection. It was all just an elaborate performance to steal my house. And now that they had what they wanted, they were going to throw me away like a broken piece of furniture. My son. My son had agreed. He had agreed to dump his own mother in a state-run facility and drive away. I sat on that rickety bed in the dark, and something inside me died. The loving, trusting mother named Carol died. Someone else was born, Mrs. Johnson, the history teacher, a woman who had taught about revolutions, about strategy, and about consequences. I cried until 4 a.m., but when the first gray light of dawn appeared, I had dried my tears. I had a plan. I realized my problem. I was trapped. I had no money. My Social Security was diverted to them. I had no car. They had my keys. My phone was an old prepaid burner phone, and they monitored my calls. I had to get out. Susan, ironically, gave me the opening. She hated my presence in the house. "You're so stuffy being in here all day," she'd often complain. "Go for a walk. Get some fresh air. Stop smelling up the house. A walk, of course. That morning, I put on my coat. I made a show of seeming confused. Oh, my hat. Where did I put my hat? I just can't remember. Susan clicked her tongue. God, your memory is shot. Just go already. There's a sandwich in the fridge for lunch. Get it yourself. I nodded. Yes, dear, and shuffled out the door. But I didn't walk to the park. I walked 2 miles as fast as my 68-year-old legs could carry me to the public library. I had one thing they couldn't take from me, my library card. I walked in, my heart pounding. I hadn't been here in months. I went to the public computer terminals. I sat down, hoping no one was paying attention to a trembling old woman. My hands were shaking so badly I mistyped my password twice. I didn't search for how to get my house back. I knew I needed an expert. I typed into Google, Legal Aid for Seniors in Ohio. A list appeared, a nonprofit organization that offered free legal services to struggling people over 60. I clicked the Contact Us link. An email form appeared. I looked around. No one was watching. I began to type. I typed out the entire truth. My name is Carol Johnson. I am 68. I believe I was tricked into signing a quitclaim deed for my home, address, by my son, Mark Johnson, and his wife, Susan Johnson, under the false pretense of protecting assets from Medicaid. I told them how I'd been moved to the basement. They have taken control of my Social Security checks and are engaging in elder abuse. I am financially trapped. I have no money for an attorney. And then I typed the last sentence, the one that had propelled me 2 miles in the cold. I overheard them last night planning to put me in a state-run facility and abandon me there. I am desperate. Please help me. I hit send. I sat there staring at the screen. Thank you. We will contact you as soon as possible. I logged out. I cleared the browser history. I walked out of the library and took a deep, cold breath of winter air. The war had begun. I walked home, and when I opened the door, Susan was standing there with her arms crossed. What took you so long? She snapped. Your sandwich is getting soggy. I lowered my head, pretending to be afraid. I'm sorry. My legs were tired. I went down to my basement, but this time it was different. I wasn't a prisoner. I was a soldier, waiting for my weapons. 3 days. 3 days went by like 3 centuries. Every time the phone rang in the house, my heart leaped, but it was never for me. Every walk I took to the library, I rushed to log in to my email, only to find an empty inbox. Desperation began to creep in. Maybe they didn't believe me. Maybe they thought I was just a senile, paranoid old woman. Meanwhile, back at the house, Susan was becoming crueler. She seemed to sense my silence and submission as a sign of weakness, and she loved it. Old woman, she said on the 3rd night, as I came up to get my plate of cold food. We're having a big Christmas party next month. Mark and I. Lots of our friends are coming. Successful people. She looked me up and down with disgust. The basement will be locked. We can't have guests seeing that. You will stay in your room. Do not make a sound. I'll have someone bring food down to you. Locked away, like an animal. And Mark, she added just loud enough for me to hear, has agreed to my plan. After New Year's, I've already called Golden Fields. They have a bed open. Golden Fields. I knew that name. It was the facility next to the city dump. It was where people sent the elderly they wanted to forget. The rage flared in me, hot and bright. No, I thought, I will not let that happen. The next day, I walked to the library. I wasn't hopeful anymore. I was going to find a plan B. Maybe I could call 911. Maybe I could run away. But where would I go? I logged onto the computer, and there it was. A new email. Subject, urgent follow-up. Your legal aid request. Carol Johnson. I clicked it, my hands shaking. Dear Mrs. Johnson, my name is Maria Diaz. I am a senior attorney with the Legal Aid Society. We have received your email. Your situation is extremely serious and falls under elder abuse. We need to meet immediately. Can you be at the main public library tomorrow at 11 a.m.? Go to the reference section on the second floor. I will be wearing a red coat. The next morning, I told Susan I needed to walk to the pharmacy to refill a prescription. A lie, as they controlled my medication, too. Just go and come back, Susan snapped. I don't have time to drive around looking for you if you get lost. I got to the library at 10:45. I went straight to the second floor. My heart was pounding like a war drum. I saw her. A young woman, maybe my daughter-in-law's age, but her eyes held an intelligence and a firmness. She was wearing a red coat. I sat down. I'm Carol, I whispered. Hello, Carol. I'm Maria. She got straight to business. Were you able to bring any documents? I have nothing, I said, ashamed. They keep everything. My keys, my wallet, my bank cards. I have nothing. That's okay, Maria said, her voice reassuring. Do you remember exactly what you signed? A quitclaim deed, I said. Susan said it was to protect the asset. Maria nodded, her face hardening. This was a story she had heard too many times. Carol, I have to be honest with you. Legally, that quitclaim deed is very strong. It means you willingly gave up all rights to the house. Your son is now the legal owner. My stomach clenched. So that's it? There's nothing I can do? We could sue, Maria said. Sue for elder financial abuse or undue influence. We could argue that you were misled, that you didn't have the capacity to understand what you were signing, but... She paused, looking me straight in the eye. Those lawsuits take time, Carol. Years sometimes, and they are expensive. And your son will fight you. He will say you were perfectly lucid, that you gave him the house willingly. He'll say you're just retaliating because he won't spoil you. It will be your word against his. A judge might not believe you. Years? I didn't have years. I had weeks before I was shipped to Golden Fields. No, there has to be, I stammered, tears welling up. Maria stayed silent, letting me process. Then she leaned forward. However, she said quietly, there might be another way, a faster way, a way they cannot defend against. I looked up. Carol, when you signed that paper, did they pay you any money? Even $1? No, I shook my head. Not a cent. Susan said it was a gift to protect it. Maria's eyes lit up. A gift, she repeated, as if she'd just tasted something sweet. Carol, do you know what the value of your house is? Frank and I paid it off. Last I checked, around $400,000. $400,000, Maria said, almost to herself. Carol, in the United States, when you give someone a gift worth $400,000, you have to report it. Report it to who? To the IRS, Maria said. Specifically, you, as the giver, are required to file a Form 709, the gift tax return. While you might not owe tax due to the lifetime exemption, the filing is mandatory. She pulled out her phone, typing quickly. I've just checked the county's public records. The transfer is recorded. New owners, Mark and Susan Johnson. Sale price, $0. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw a smile. The idiots, she whispered. They were so greedy and arrogant. I would bet $100 they never filed a thing with the IRS. They thought they pulled a fast one at the county level and forgot about the federal government. So what does that mean? I asked, my heart racing. It means, Maria said, that your son and daughter-in-law may have committed tax evasion. And the IRS is not like a family court judge. They don't care who took care of whom. They only care about the numbers, and they have immense power. They can place a lien on that very house. A tiny spark of hope, the first in months, ignited in me. So, what do we do? Here's the problem, Maria said. If we sue, they'll lie. They'll say, oh, it wasn't a gift. It was a sale. We paid my mother in cash. Or they'll say, my mother owed us money for her care, so she signed the house over as payment. They'll invent a story. We need proof, she continued. Inarguable proof that both sides understood this was a gift and that no money was exchanged. How do I get that? Maria opened her briefcase. She took out a small black object that looked like a USB drive. This is a digital audio recorder. It's high sensitivity. You just flick this switch. It can record for 8 hours straight. She placed it in my palm. Carol, you need to go back in there, she said, her voice serious. You need to get Susan or Mark, preferably both, to admit 3 things on tape. That the house was a gift, that you received no money for it, that the reason was to protect it from Medicaid. She's arrogant, Susan is, I said, my hand closing around the recorder. She thinks I'm a stupid, senile old woman. Good, Maria said. Use that. Act confused. Act scared. Ask her, Susan, dear, I'm so worried. I can't remember getting paid for the house. What if someone asks? Let her own arrogance be her downfall. I nodded. Get that tape, whatever it takes, Maria said. The moment you have it, come back here, bring me that tape, and I promise you, you will not be in that basement by Christmas. I slipped the recorder into my coat pocket. I can do this, I said. I walked out of the library. No longer a victim seeking help. I was an agent on a mission. I walked home, my heart pounding but not with fear. It was adrenaline. The game had changed. It took me 2 days to work up the nerve. The small recorder sat in the pocket of my old coat, cold as a stone. Every time I touched it, my heart fluttered. Could Susan hear it? What if she made me empty my pockets? I had to do this, but I was terrified. Terrified I would say the wrong thing. Terrified my voice would tremble and give me away. For 2 days, I watched. Susan was at the height of her arrogance. She was constantly on the phone, planning the massive Christmas party she was going to host in my house. Of course, I heard her braying into the phone to a friend. Mark and I finally have a proper space to entertain. I'm getting a 9-foot tree. This living room deserves it. She paced above my head, her heels clicking on the floor like a queen surveying her domain. Mark, by contrast, looked increasingly miserable. He was silent at meals, avoided my gaze, and buried his head in the TV. He knew what they were doing was wrong. His weakness, ironically, was what I needed. It was time. That evening, I waited until the children were in bed. I could hear Susan berating Mark for buying the wrong brand of wine for the party. I took a deep breath, my hand trembling as I flicked the record switch on the device in my pocket. I walked up the stairs, deliberately shuffling my feet, making myself look panicked. "Mark, Susan!" I called out, my voice weak. Susan spun around, her face a mask of annoyance. "What is it now? I thought I told you to stay in the basement." I'm sorry, I said, forcing a tremor into my voice. "But I can't sleep. I'm so worried." Mark looked up, his face etched with guilt. "Worried about what, Mom?" Today on my walk, I began my lie. I ran into Mrs. Henderson from down the street. She was asking about me. She asked if it was true that I sold the house to you. Susan crossed her arms. "And what did you say?" "I said nothing," I said quickly. "I said I couldn't remember, but Susan, I'm scared." I shuffled closer, playing the part of the confused, frightened old woman. She kept talking about taxes. She said if you sell a big house like this, the IRS will come. "Susan, I can't remember getting any money from you. What if they think I hid the money? Will they put me in jail? I'm so scared." I had set the bait. I used my own feigned ignorance as a shield and played on the fear of the IRS, but directed it at myself. As I predicted, Mark went pale. He hadn't thought of this. "But Susan..." Susan laughed, a loud, barking laugh, full of contempt. "Oh my God, old woman," she cackled. "You really don't know anything, do you? You? Go to jail? You don't have any assets for them to take. You're pathetic." But the house," I pleaded, tears welling in my eyes. Real tears, but of rage, not fear. I didn't get any money. I know I didn't. Right? Mark, Susan, we said it was a gift, didn't we? Mark started to say something, but Susan cut him off. Yes, it was a gift, Susan shouted, her arrogance now in full bloom. She relished the chance to explain to this idiot just how smart she was. Where do you think we would get $400,000 to pay you? Are you insane? You gave us the house. Get it through your senile head. You signed the paper. You gave it to us. You didn't get a single penny. The tape was rolling. Check and check. Point 1, gift, and point 2, no money. I pressed on, pretending to be more confused. But why would I do that? I can't remember. Why would I just give you the house? Susan rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. Jesus, do I have to spell it out again? She snapped. You are such a waste of time. You gave it to us to protect the asset. Remember that word? Medicaid? Mark tried to interject. Susan, come on, not so loud. Who cares? Let her remember. Susan jabbed a finger in my face. We did it to scam the system, so that if you fall and break your hip tomorrow, the state has to pay for your cheap nursing home. And they can't touch my house. Do you get it now? It was a smart plan, and you agreed to it. There it was, the whole confession. I backed away, pretending to finally understand. Oh, yes. Yes, Medicaid. That's right. I remember now. Thank you, dear. Thank you for explaining. I'm sorry I bothered you. I turned and shuffled back down to the basement, Susan's disdainful snort following me. I shut the door, locked it. My hands were shaking so much I could barely turn off the recorder. I sat down on my bed, gasping for air. I had it. I had them. I had her arrogant, cruel voice admitting to everything. The next morning, I had to get the tape to Maria. This was the hard part. How to get out without suspicion. I had an idea. I went upstairs mid-morning while Susan was busy decorating her precious Christmas tree. Susan, I'm not feeling well, I said, clutching my chest. I think I need to go to the pharmacy. I'm out of my heart pills. Another lie, but a necessary one. Susan didn't even look at me. God, you're falling apart. My car keys are on the counter. Go, but be back in an hour. I need the car to go buy more ornaments. She just tossed me the keys. She was so confident in her control, so sure I was harmless. I grabbed my coat with the recorder in the pocket, snatched the keys, and bolted out the door. I didn't drive to the pharmacy. I drove straight to the public library. I ran to the second floor. Maria was already there, as promised, waiting in the reference section. Did you get it? She asked immediately. I didn't say a word. I just handed her the recorder, my hand trembling. Maria took it, plugged a set of earbuds into it, and connected it to her laptop. I sat across from her, watching her face as she listened. I saw her eyebrows raise. I saw her lips press into a thin, hard line. And then I saw a slow, deeply satisfied smile spread across her face. She listened to the very end. Then she took out the earbuds and looked at me. Carol, she said, her voice full of awe, you're not just a history teacher. You are an Oscar-winning actress. So, is it enough? I whispered. The IRS, will they? Maria held up a hand, stopping me. Forget the IRS, she said. This tape, this is better than a tax problem. We don't need them anymore. I was confused. What do you mean? Carol, your daughter-in-law didn't just admit it was a gift. She admitted to a criminal conspiracy. Defrauding Medicaid is a federal crime. And she just confessed to the entire plot on tape. Maria closed her laptop. We now have indisputable proof of elder financial abuse, fraud, and conspiracy to defraud the government. Any judge who hears this tape will immediately void that quitclaim deed. The house will be yours again, instantly. I burst into tears. This time, tears of pure relief. So, we go to court? Oh no, Maria smiled. We're not going to waste time with that. We're going to bring the court to them. She looked at her calendar. Susan's planning her big Christmas party, right? This Saturday? I nodded. Perfect, Maria said. Let her invite her friends. Let her buy her expensive tree. Let her enjoy her last few days as lady of the manor. She looked at me, her eyes steel cold. You go home, Carol. Act normal. Stay in your basement. And you and I are going to prepare a very special Christmas present for Mark and Susan. One they will never, ever forget. The next 5 days were the strangest of my life. I went back to my basement, but everything was different. The concrete cold didn't seem to touch me anymore. I was no longer a trembling victim. I was a combatant on a countdown. I did everything Susan asked. I ate my plate of leftovers in silence. I cleaned my small basement bathroom. I was obedient. Upstairs, the Christmas atmosphere was grotesque. Susan had bought the 9-foot tree just as she'd bragged. I could smell the fresh pine mixed with her expensive perfume. She hummed as she decorated. She was on top of the world, the queen of a $400,000 house she'd gotten for free. She even showed me a moment of kindness. "Old woman," she called down the stairs. 2 days before the party. "I bought you a Christmas sweater." I came up. She tossed me a hideously green, cheap sweater with a sequined reindeer whose red nose squeaked. "Wear that on Saturday," she commanded. "I'm locking the basement door at 4 p.m. before the guests arrive. I'll have the caterer bring a plate down to you." She wanted me presentable, even in captivity. Perhaps so if I starved to death down there. She could tell the police, but I just bought her a Christmas sweater. "Thank you, dear," I said, taking the sweater. You're very kind." "I know," Susan smiled. "Oh, and Mark confirmed with Golden Fields. January 2nd, you're all set for your new senior community." She smiled, turned on her heel, and went back to her work. She had no idea she'd just given me my deadline. January 2nd. Finally, Saturday arrived. I could hear everything from the basement. The smooth Christmas jazz, the clinking of glasses, the roar of cheerful, oblivious conversation. My house, my fortress, was filled with strangers, with Susan's successful friends. I sat on my bed wearing the stupid reindeer sweater. My palms were slick with sweat. 7 p.m. on the dot. That was the time Maria had given. I heard the doorbell ring, but this time it was different. It wasn't the happy chime of a guest. It was a long, insistent buzz that cut through the music. I heard the music die down. I heard Susan mutter, "Who the hell is that?" I heard the front door open. And then I heard Maria's voice, clear and sharp. "Good evening. Sorry to interrupt. I'm looking for Mrs. Susan Johnson." "I'm Susan. Who are you? We're having a party," Susan said, annoyed. "I'm Maria Diaz. I'm the attorney representing the owner of this house, Mrs. Carol Johnson." A dead, heavy silence fell over the house. I heard Mark stammer, "Carol, Mom, she's not well. She's resting." "Oh, she's fine," Maria said, and I heard her footsteps as she walked into the living room. "In fact, she's on her way up right now." That was my cue. I unlocked my basement door. I walked up the stairs. When I appeared in the living room doorway, every eye in the room snapped to me. 30-plus strangers in expensive clothes, all staring at me. An old woman in a cheap reindeer sweater, my hair a mess. Susan looked like she had seen a ghost. Her face went white. What are you doing up here? Get back downstairs." Mark rushed toward me. "Mom, what are you doing? Go back to your room. You're scaring people." "Stop, Mark," Maria commanded. "Do not touch my client." Mark froze. "Susan," Maria continued, her calm voice filling the room. "Mark, do you two recognize this voice?" Maria held up a small Bluetooth speaker. She pressed a button, and then Susan's own shrill voice filled her magnificent living room. "Oh my God, old woman, you really don't know anything, do you?" Susan's jaw dropped. "You gave us the house. Get it through your senile head. You didn't get a single penny." The guests began to look at each other. A few people took a step back. "You gave it to us to protect the asset. Remember that word? Medicaid?" Mark looked like he was going to be sick. He stumbled back into a chair. We did it to scam the system, so that if you fall and break your hip, the state has to pay for your cheap nursing home, and they can't touch my house. Do you get it now?" The recording ended. The silence in the room was absolute. You could have heard a pine needle drop from the 9-foot tree. All of these successful friends were staring at Susan with expressions of pure horror and disgust. Susan, her face now bright red with fury and humiliation, finally found her voice. You recorded me?" she shrieked, lunging toward me. "You sneaky old bitch, that's illegal. I'll sue you." Maria stepped between us, blocking Susan. "First, the state of Ohio is a one-party consent state," Maria said sharply. "Mrs. Johnson was fully within her rights to record a conversation she was a part of. Second, you have just publicly confessed to fraud, elder financial abuse, and conspiracy to defraud Medicaid, a federal crime." Susan stopped dead. "The party is over," Maria announced to the room. "I suggest you all leave." No one needed to be told twice. The guests scrambled for their coats and flooded out the front door, avoiding Susan's gaze as if she were toxic. Within 60 seconds, the room was empty. It was just me, Maria, Mark, who was sobbing into his hands, and Susan, who was shaking with rage. "Get out of my house!" Susan screamed. "Get out!" "It is not your house," Maria said, pulling a set of documents from her briefcase. "Here are your 2 options. Listen closely. Option 1. I take this recording and Mrs. Johnson's testimony directly to the district attorney's office on Monday morning. You will both be criminally prosecuted for elder abuse and fraud. You, Susan, will be prosecuted for Medicaid fraud. You will go to prison." Susan staggered back, bumping into the Christmas tree. "Option 2, Maria continued, placing the documents on the table. "This is a new quitclaim deed. It transfers the house back to its rightful owner, Mrs. Carol Johnson. You will sign it, right now. In exchange, Mrs. Johnson agrees not to pursue criminal charges." Maria looked at her watch. "You have 48 hours to pack your personal belongings and get out. If you are still here at noon on Monday, that tape goes to the DA." Mark looked up, his face streaked with tears. "Mom, I'm sorry, "Sign it, Mark," I said. My voice, for the first time in months, was steady as a rock. Susan stared at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. "You will never see your grandchildren again. Do you hear me? Never." "I can live with that," I replied. Maria pushed a pen toward them. "Sign." Mark, trembling, grabbed the pen and signed his name. All eyes turned to Susan. She knew she had lost. The game was over. Her friends, her reputation, her house, all gone in 10 minutes. She ground her teeth, snatched the pen from Mark, and signed her name on the line. Maria picked up the paper, checking the signatures. "Very good," she said. "I'll have this filed with the county first thing Monday. Now, I suggest you 2 start packing." They signed. Maria took the paper, folded it neatly, and put it in her briefcase. 48 hours, she said to Mark and Susan. "Starting now." She nodded to me. "Carol, I will call you on Monday morning." She walked to the front door, and I shut it firmly behind her. The room was suddenly silent. The party was over. All that was left was me, my son, and the woman who had tried to destroy me. Mark was still collapsed on the chair. Susan, her face chalk white, slowly turned to look at me. For a second, I thought she might physically attack me. Her eyes were pure venom. "You've ruined everything," she hissed, her voice raspy. "Everything, all for a little bit of pride. My friends, my reputation." "Your reputation?" I asked, my voice flat. "Are you talking about your reputation as an elder abuser, or your reputation as someone who commits federal fraud?" Susan was speechless. "Go pack," I ordered. "Susan." She stared at me for one more second, then spun on her heel and stormed up the stairs. A moment later, I heard drawers being ripped open and cabinet doors slamming. Mark was still there, motionless. "Mom," he whimpered. "Mom, I didn't mean for Susan, she made me." "You agreed," I said, cutting him off. "Mark, You agreed to send me to Golden Fields. I heard you. You agreed to throw me away after Christmas." "I had no choice," he shouted, finally raising his cowardly head. "She threatened to take the kids. You don't understand." "I understand better than you think," I said. "Frank, your father, was a man who worked hard his entire life. He never backed down from a difficult thing. You are a disgrace. Now go pack your things." I didn't wait for his reply. I turned, walked back down to my basement. But this time, I didn't lock the door out of fear. I locked it for privacy. The next 48 hours were hell upstairs. I sat on my rickety bed, calmly sipping tea. Above me was a symphony of chaos. The sound of furniture being dragged, the crash of breaking glass, and the sound of them screaming at each other. "This is your fault!" Susan's shriek. "You weakling, you spineless coward! You couldn't even handle one old woman!" "My fault?" Mark roared back, his voice cracking with anger and despair. "You're the one who wanted it all. You wanted this house. You pushed me into this. Both of you, just shut up." The arguing, the crying, the slamming of doors, it went on for 2 days and 2 nights. I just sat there, listening to their dirty little empire collapse. I felt no pity. I felt no guilt. I felt nothing. I just waited. Monday morning, 11 a.m., I heard a large truck backing into the driveway, a U-Haul. An hour later, I heard their final heavy footsteps. I unlocked my basement door and went upstairs. They were standing at the front door. Their 2 children, my grandchildren, stood beside a pile of suitcases, their faces pale and confused. They had no idea what was happening. That was the only thing that gave my heart a pang of sorrow. Susan threw a set of keys onto the floor. "There's your car," she spat. "Keep your piece of junk car." Mark wouldn't look at me. He just picked up a bag, his eyes glued to the floor. "Mom, Goodbye, Mark," I said. Susan grabbed his arm. "Let's go. Don't waste your breath on her." She turned back to me one last time, her eyes like daggers. "I hope you're happy. Dying all alone in this empty house." She dragged Mark and the children out to the truck. They climbed in and drove away. I stood at the door and watched until the truck turned the corner. Then I closed the door. Silence. A heavy, absolute silence. My first call. "Hello, I need a locksmith." An hour later, a man was at my door. "I want every lock in this house changed," I said, immediately. While he worked, I walked through my territory. The house was a war zone. Ripped Christmas paper, broken ornaments, food stains on the carpet. And then I saw it. The 9-foot Christmas tree. Susan's monument to her own arrogance. It was still standing there, glittering obscenely. I went to the garage. I found Frank's old handsaw. I went back to the living room and I began to saw. I cut that tree into 3 pieces. It was hard work. Sweat dripped down my back. But with every ragged cut, I felt a piece of the burden fall away. I dragged the pieces out to the curb. Then I opened every single window in the house, despite the December cold. I had to get the smell of Susan's perfume out. I had to get the smell of their lies out. When the locksmith handed me my new set of keys, I held them in my hand. They felt solid, real. That night, I didn't sleep in the basement. I went up to my master bedroom, my room. I slept the deepest sleep I'd had in a year. A week later, Maria called. "It's done, Carol. The new deed is filed. The house is 100% legally yours. Congratulations." I thanked her. But as I hung up, I looked around the clean living room. I realized something. Susan had been half right. The house, it was empty. The good memories of Frank were now tainted by the horror of the last few months. I couldn't stay here. This place was poisoned. I called a real estate agent. "I want to sell," I said, "as soon as possible." The house sold in 2 weeks. 2 months later, I was sitting on a balcony. The sun was warm. This wasn't Ohio, this was Florida. I had used the money from the sale to lease a beautiful apartment in a 55-plus active living community. There is a pool here. There is a book club. There are new friends, women like me, women who know the value of their independence. Did Mark call? Yes. Once. Mom. His voice was thin over the phone. Susan, she took the kids. She left me. She said I was a failure. Mom, I have nothing. I'm at a motel. Can I come home? I was silent for a long moment. Mark, I said, my voice calm. There is no home to come back to. The house is sold. You are 40 years old. It's time you learn to stand on your own. I hope you get help. But I can't help you anymore. I hung up the phone. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but it was necessary. This morning, I got the notification from my bank. My Social Security check had arrived. It went directly into my account, mine and mine alone. I am no longer an invisible mother. I am no longer a senile old woman in a basement. My name is Carol Johnson, and for the first time in a very long time, I am completely and totally free. Thank you for listening to my story. Carol's story. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is set boundaries with the people we love the most. What do you think about what I did? Was I too cruel to cut Mark off, or was it necessary for my own survival? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel. Your support means the world and helps us continue to bring you more life stories just like this one. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next story.